Hi, in this video, we will talk about how to handle ShadowDOM elements in Selenium. So as part of this, first we will see what is ShadowDOM, what is nested ShadowDOM, what is the use of ShadowDOM, what are the problems with ShadowDOM in Selenium, so how you can identify those elements using JavaScript executor and getShadowDOM method. Okay. So first we'll see what is ShadowDOM. ShadowDOM or Shadow Document Object Model. DOM means Document Object Model. So Shadow Document Object Model is a web platform feature that allows web developers to encapsulate the structure and the style of a web component from the rest of the page. So it is a part of the web component standard, which is a collection of technologies that enable the creation of reusable encapsulated components in web applications. Okay, so we know already what is DOM, document object model, that is the HTML behind the your web page. Okay, so if you take an example, so if this is a page, so you have different type of elements. How these elements we are seeing behind this, we have a HTML code. So if you inspect this, so this is the code we have behind this web page. So this is all called DOM. DOM behind this page, document object model. So when you come to shadow DOM, means this is a DOM inside the actual DOM. So the entire whatever you are seeing here, the code is DOM. Inside the DOM, you have very similar to this DOM that is called shadow DOM. Okay. So simply say DOM inside the DOM. But why it is shadow DOM? Why they name shadow DOM? Means so you encapsulate these components from the actual shadow DOM, actual DOM. Okay. So means if you put something, the shadow DOM you cannot directly access. Okay. And you are isolating the DOM from the actual DOM. So then if you go here, what is the purpose of this? We just discussing that reusable, right? So this is a shadow element. The button is blue color and we have some white text. Okay. So I want the same look and feel so many places. I want to create a similar button in so many places. That time, so we will apply some styling, right? So instead of applying that styling for each and every button or element, we will write a separate DOM. Okay. So inside the DOM, we will apply this styling. So whenever you use that shadow DOM inside your actual DOM, then automatically it will generate this kind of look and feel. So if you want to understand clearly, so in Selenium or any Java programming or any other programming languages, if you have a code which you are using multiple times, what you will do, you will create a separate method and you keep calling that method whenever you need same logic. A very similar way, whenever you need same kind of element on your web page, then you can use that another DOM inside this DOM. Okay, so there are some important points we need to discuss. So shadow host, okay, the regular DOM node that the shadow DOM is attached to. Okay, where this regular DOM, which is attached to your the shadow DOM, where it is attached to your shadow DOM. The regular DOM node that the shadow DOM is attached to, the element that hosts a shadow DOM is called the shadow host. The shadow host serves as the boundary between the shadow DOM and the regular DOM. It's the entry point through which you interact with the encapsulated content. Okay. So then shadow tree. The DOM structure within the shadow DOM is referred to as the shadow tree. It includes HTML elements and their associated styles, scripts, and event handlers. The shadow tree is hidden from the main document and it is only accessible through shadow host. Okay. So we will see with the one diagram, but this is just a theory. Here shadow host means the regular DOM, it is attached to shadow DOM. Shadow tree means the actual DOM of the shadow. So we have multiple elements, right? HTML, body, okay, inside the div, and span tags, input tags, button tags, all these things, that is inside the shadow DOM, that is called shadow tree. Shadow boundary, the place where the shadow DOM ends and the regular DOM begins. Okay. Shadow root, the root node of the shadow tree. There is a root, right, for every DOM. So normally the root of the every HTML, every normal DOM is HTML tag. The same way here also you'll have a shadow root. So if you want to discuss all these things, one what is a diagram. So here this is documentary normal DOM. Okay. So here you can say here this is actual DOM. Okay, document object model. Okay. So inside this you have a normal tree and shadow host. Okay. So then the normal tree has normal elements. If you say if it is a div, okay, this might be another div or span tag, whatever it is. Okay. Same way for this actual DOM, you have a shadow host. Okay. This is part of actual DOM, but this is hosting the shadow DOM. There you have a shadow root, the actual where the shadow DOM starts, that is shadow root. Inside this you have the entire thing is called shadow tree again. So here you may have div, you may have span. Inside the span you may have input tag. Okay, normal tags. Okay, so the entire thing they made it a single diagram. So normal DOM has normal elements. So we have a shadow host. Inside a shadow host, you have a shadow tree. Inside the shadow tree, you will have a shadow root. You will have a shadow root here. Okay. So this is how you will represent your DOM or shadow DOM inside the normal DOM. So there is a chance of inside the shadow DOM, you might have another shadow DOM. Inside that, you may have another shadow DOM. There is no end. According to your requirement, you can create a shadow DOM inside the another shadow DOM. Okay. So now, if you go back to your normal presentation, so then what are the advantages of shadow DOM? Okay. So reusable components. Just now we are discussing, right? I want to create the same kind of element in multiple pages or multiple places in your website. So instead of writing that entire div styling or all these things, if we inspect this is that shadow root. Okay, inner shadow DOM. Inside that nested shadow root. Right. So here, what we can say, this entire code we can encapsulate somewhere and can keep adding. So here, for our understanding, the code is written on the what do you say, in the same place. We are not reusing actually. How you write your normal code, right? Java code or Selenium code or whatever programming code. So I have not created a separate method and calling the same place. I'm writing the logic. But in real time, they will encapsulate this into some other DOM and they keep calling that. Okay. But here I want to see that actual code. Because of that, I have not encapsulated here. But the actual intention of this is write somewhere and use here. Okay. That's how you can encapsulate. So ShadowDOM is especially useful when creating reusable web components. So remember, reusable. Okay, we need to reuse the same code multiple places. It allows you to encapsulate the internal structure and style of the component, preventing external styles and scripts from interfering with the functionality. Okay, for actual page, you will apply some CSS styling somewhere in the .css file. So there you will styling for some elements, buttons, input tags, or any divs, all those things. If you change one place, wherever you're applying that class, every time it will means every element it will affect. but sometimes I don't want to affect that styling to my some elements. So at that time you're isolating this DOM and putting separate styling for this. Whenever you change something for the actual DOM, that will not reflect to the these shadow elements. If you want to change something styling for this, you need to change inside the shadow DOM. Okay, so you're isolating that logic or styling from actual DOM to this shadow elements. So isolation, that is what we are discussing it. If you want to ensure that the styles and functionality of a component are isolated and won't impact the rest of your web page or other components, ShadowDOM is a good choice. Okay, and scoped styling. So if you want to apply the styling inside the only ShadowDOM, then you can apply that. That affects, that impacts only ShadowDOM elements, not the rest of the page. Encapsulation. So ShadowDOM provides encapsulation for a DOM subtree. This means that elements within the ShadowDOM are scoped and isolated from the main DOM. This isolation prevents style and script conflicts between the component and the rest of the page. The same thing he is discussing as per here using reusable components. Same thing is discussing as an encapsulation. Maintainability. Okay, ShadowDOM promotes clean and maintainable code by encapsulating the component structure and logic, making it easier to understand, test, and upgrade or update. Right. If it is somewhere where the maintainability is easy, if you want to change the logic or styling of that particular page, you can simply go there and change there. Okay, wherever you are using that ShadowDOM, everywhere it will apply that logic or changes. Reduce risk of collisions. ShadowDOM helps in reducing the risk of naming and styling collisions, making it easier to integrate third-party components into your applications. But the same thing, it will not affect your main page. If you change in the main page, it will not affect the ShadowDOM. If you change something in the ShadowDOM, it will not reflect in the actual DOM. Okay. So then what are the problems with ShadowDOM in our Selenium? Okay. So we are discussing what is ShadowDOM or nested ShadowDOM or regular DOM, all these things, what are the advantages, all these things. But that is a normal developing your application. So what is the problem in your Selenium if you use ShadowDOMs in your application? Okay. So you cannot access the elements inside the ShadowDOM directly. The inaccessible elements. Elements within a ShadowDOM are not directly accessible using standard Selenium locators like find element. You will need to navigate through the ShadowDOM to reach and interact with these elements. So by using driver.findElement, you cannot find those elements which are there inside the ShadowDOM in your Selenium. Okay. So what happens if you try to access those elements? Then you can get no such element exception if you try to access the elements inside the ShadowDOM directly. Okay. So we'll see some examples using find ShadowDOM elements using JavaScript executor and get ShadowDOM method and inside the nested ShadowDOMs, multi-nested ShadowDOM, all these things examples will take and see by using this code. Okay. So there are some points you need to remember, very important. So we will get no such ShadowRoot exception if the ShadowRoot is not found. Okay. How you are getting no such element exception if you're trying to access some elements inside the ShadowDOM. And the same way, if you do not have any ShadowDOM, but you're trying to using that ShadowDOM is there. If you feel that you are trying to use ShadowDOM logic, then you will get a no such ShadowRoot exception. And inside the ShadowRoot, if you want to access some elements, then you need to use only CSS selector. XPath and other things will not available. Okay. So that is the theory. Now we'll see everything, whatever discussed, using some logic or code using our Selenium code. Okay. So let me go to Visual Studio Code. So here I have created multiple methods. I created a class called handle ShadowDOM test. Then you have a get ShadowDOM element text using JavaScript executor, get ShadowDOM element text, get nested ShadowDOM element text, multi-nested ShadowDOM element text, no such root, no such shadow root exception. We just discussed it, right? So how we can get that? Okay, we will discuss all those things. Okay, now let me. So web driver is equals to new Chrome driver. Okay, and then driver dot get. Okay, what is that? I'm going to this URL dev.automationtesting.in/ShadowDOM. Okay, once you go there, and sorry to tell you, you can read if you want more information from ShadowDOM. You can go to developers.mozilla.org, and I'll provide this link in the description. Okay, you can read the, if you want any extra information, you can go through this. And there are mode also for ShadowRoot. You have some modes. What are those modes? Closed and open. Okay, if you use closed mode, then you cannot access inside that ShadowDOM elements inside that. If it is open, you can use. Inside the closed also, there are two ways you can access and you cannot access. That is a different concept. But a high level, if it is closed means you cannot access. If it is open means you can access. Okay. So when it comes to here, this is not a button. So just applied some styling to what is it, differentiate these three elements. If you inspect this, you see that ShadowRoot open. Okay, if it is closed, you cannot access the elements inside this. Okay, so now I shadowed. This is my, you see that shadow element, that is a span tag. It has shadow element ID. Okay, so I'll take this. What I'll do, web element. So just element driver dot find element by dot ID. What is that ID? This is the ID dot get text. Otherwise, I'll leave like this. System.out.println. I'll try to print the element text. Okay, element dot get text. Okay, so if I try to execute this now, you see that I'm getting some issue. arg.openqueue.selenium. No such element exception. No such element, unable to locate element with this shadow element. Okay, so why I'm not able to access this element? So the reason is it is inside the shadow root. So if you go here, this div E is shadow host. So this is hosting this actual shadow elements. So because of that, this div, this is the shadow host. Okay. If you go up, so this is normal HTML. Okay. Inside this HTML, you have a shadow root. This shadow root is attached to this div. So this div is called shadow host actually. Okay. This is hosting. Then first I need to navigate through this shadow root. Then only I can navigate into other, get into this code. Okay. So if I try to find this element, and inside this you have this element, shadow root. Okay. What I'll do, shadow host. Okay. Web element, shadow root. Then shadow host that find element by dot id. The shadow root. This is shadow element. This is shadow root. First, I am finding the parent shadow host. Inside that, I have shadow element. Okay. So I'm getting that element. I'm just named it as shadow root. So that text I'm getting. If you try to understand, this is the parent element. Inside that, I have a child element. So I'm navigating through this. Okay. First, I'm finding the shadow host. Inside that, shadow host dot find element by shadow element, and I'm getting the text. Okay. So we'll give a try like this. Is that again I'm getting the same element, no such element exception. So even if you are using directly or using its parent, that is inside the shadow DOM, so you cannot directly access those elements. Okay, so because of that, we need to depend upon JavaScript executor. Okay, we need to depend upon JavaScript executor. So what I'll do now, first I'll find the shadow host. This is we need to find. After that, introduce JavaScript executor. Okay, JavaScript executor is equals to JavaScript executor. Okay, sorry, we need to wrap like this. Okay, so the same thing, if you want to know exactly, so this is shadow root, right? If I go to console, if I write document dot get element by id, if you hit enter, you see that it is finding the inside that whatever you have. Okay, the same way you have shadow root span id shadow element, right? Shadow element. I'll try to do the same thing for document dot get element by id. You see that you'll get a null, but we have that element, right? Shadow element. If it is able to identify with shadow root, but when you try to use shadow element, it is giving me null. When I use shadow root, I'm getting the whatever inside that DOM we are getting, but document dot get element by id shadow element. So though it is there, it is not giving me. So how you can handle these kind of scenarios? So shadow root, inside the shadow root, you need to get dot, we have a shadow root dot, again get element by id. Then what is that? Shadow element. Then you see that I'm getting previously when I did not use a dot shadow root here, it is giving me null. So here, once I introduce a shadow root here, that shadow host dot shadow root dot that particular element, then I'm seeing this shadow element. So this is how you need to write your logic. So that can be achieved using JavaScript executor. Okay. So I introduced a shadow JavaScript executor. So then shadow root, then what we can do, we need to write what we need to write, js dot execute script. Okay, execute script, return arguments of 0 dot, we need to mention shadow root, whatever we used there, right? And which element? that is shadow host. Okay. On this shadow host means whenever you find this element, for this element apply the shadow root. Exactly this, find this element and then on that shadow root. Okay. So then I'm getting the error. What is that error? So add cache to web element. So this is returning, it will not return the web element. So we need to convert to web element. Okay. So once you get the web element, ShadowRoot dot get text. Okay. Let me open this terminal. Now I am accessing this element shadow root element using this shadow host by using shadow root. Okay. So when you try to execute this, still I am getting the error. Shadow root cannot be cached to web element. Okay. So I expected this one. So this will not convert to web element. What it will convert? So the return type of this is search context. Okay. This search context. So search context is parent of web element. Okay. If you go to web element, you see that web element extends. What it extends? Search context. Okay. Web element extend search context. Okay. So because of that, we are taking this parent. Okay. Then what I can do? Shadow root dot get text. I'm not getting. The reason is get text method is not there inside the search context. Okay. So then what I need to do? So okay. Now I need to get the inside this one, right? Inside what is there? Dot find element. Okay. We'll do other way. This is search context. Let me make it one more line. So web element, I can say shadow element. Okay. Then shadow root dot find element by dot id. What is that id? Shadow element. Okay. So then shadow element dot get text. Okay. So first I found the root shadow host. Inside that shadow root using this shadow root option in the JavaScript executor. And once I get into that, I'm finding the element inside this. Okay, inside the shadow root, you have the shadow element. Okay, finding that element, and then I'm getting the text. Okay, we'll try to execute one more time. I'm still getting error. Okay, invalid argument, invalid selector. Okay, so everything is 100% correct, though we are getting this issue. So the issue is we are discussing, right? Inside the shadow root, okay, we can use only CSS selector, no other option. So I cannot use ID here. So I need to use CSS selector. And how can I convert this ID to CSS selector? Put hash in front of that. Okay, I change it from ID to CSS selector. Now you just try to execute now. No error it seems. If you see console output, You see that shadow element. That is what it is there, right? Shadow element. Okay. We are able to find that element. If you want to execute one more time, you can execute. It started executing. If you go here, you see shadow element, it is printing. Okay. So this is how you need to handle ShadowDOM elements using JavaScript executor. Okay. So first find the actual element which is hosting that ShadowDOM. So then inside that, what you can do using the JavaScript executor, it will return the search context shadowhost, ShadowRoot of shadowhost. So very similar to this. I'm getting the shadow element till here. This much is giving me what? Search context. Okay, this is giving me search context. Inside the search context, again, once you get here, find another element. Okay, find the another element. Here it is accepting ID, but here it will not accept. So because of that, I'm using CSS selector. Once you find the actual element, you perform what action you want. If you want to, it's a button, you click on that. If it is a input box, send the keys. As it is a normal span tag, so I'm getting the text, get text. Okay. So now this is when we are using this one, when there is no direct method available in the Selenium. Direct means we have one more option. We don't need to use the JavaScript executor and no get confused all these things. So we have a direct method that is called, what is that? getShadowDOM method, which is introduced in, per my knowledge, version 4.0.0-RC1. At least you can say somewhere version 4, not exactly. From Selenium 4, you have direct getShadowDOM method. Okay, so we'll try to do the same thing. I'll take the same here. Okay, let me minimize this. So, and then once you go there, okay, once you go there, we need to find shadowhost, right? Shadowhost. So web element shadowhost is equals to driver dot find element by dot id. We have id, right? What is that id? ShadowRoot. Okay, we found that element ShadowRoot. Now shadowhost dot, you see that getShadowRoot. We have a direct method which is introduced in Selenium 4, and the return type of this is what? Search context. Is that search context? So this is what it will return. Search context. This is ShadowRoot. Right. It is giving me ShadowRoot. Then I need to get web element shadow element. Okay. What is the shadow element? ShadowRoot dot find element by dot, again CSS selector only. It will not accept other options. Shadow element. Okay. Then system.out.println shadow element dot get text. Same thing, but instead of using JavaScript executor, we are using here what we did for the search context. First, JavaScript execute js.execute script and getting the shadow root. The same thing is wrapped into internally. Same logic is wrapped into internally get shadow root. Okay, so get shadow root. This will return the search context. Once you get that shadow root, inside that I'm finding another element which is the actual element which I'm interested, and then shadow element dot get text. Okay, let me execute this. So we will not find any issues. It has to print. So it's done. This is that shadow element. Okay, so perfectly working with this shadow root method. Okay, so sometimes we discuss, right, nested shadow DOM, multi-nested shadow DOM inside the shadow DOM. Okay, so you see that if you inside the shadow root, you have inner shadow DOM. Is that again shadow root? Again nested shadow root. Sorry, shadow root inside this. Let me. You see that nested shadow element for this shadow root, again shadow root. Okay, this shadow root has another shadow root that is called inner shadow DOM. I'm mentioning like this. Okay, so if this is the case, same logic will apply. That can be done using JavaScript executor also, but we have shadow DOM, so we don't need to use JavaScript executor. That is just for the knowledge. I showed one example. So here I will use shadow DOM, shadow root method only. Okay, so I'll capture till here. Till here you can take reusable code. Okay, so I can say outer shadow host. Okay, you have two, right, to differentiate properly. This is outer shadow root. Okay, first I am finding the what is this? Okay, so found that outer shadow host using this by.id. So inside this you have a shadow DOM. So because of that, this element dot get shadow DOM. I'm getting the shadow DOM. That is called, I'm calling that as a outer shadow root. Okay, so inside this, first we need to travel to what? Again, this is a normal element. Okay, normal web element, inner shadow DOM. It has ID. Okay, inside that you have again shadow root, and then inside that you have this nested shadow element with this ID span tag. Okay, another layer. So what I need to do here, again web element inner shadow host, that is inside the outer shadow root dot find element by dot. Now I cannot use IDs. I need to use CSS selector only. So what is the name of that? Inner shadow DOM. Okay. Again, this is a normal element, but inside that you have what? Shadow root again. So inside the shadow DOM, you have a shadow root. Again, search context. Inner shadow root. Okay. Inside shadow root is outer shadow root dot get shadow root. Okay. Sorry. Inner shadow host. This is. Okay. Again, inside this, I have an actual element. What is that? Web element. inner shadow web element, you can say inner shadow element is equals to inner shadow root dot get text. Sorry, find element by that CSS selector again. What is that CSS selector? This is the actual element, right? Nested shadow element. Nested shadow element. Then standard.out.println inner shadow element dot get text. Okay. This is how. First find the outer shadow root, outer shadow element. So get the shadow root of that, and then inside that get the inner shadow host, and inside the host you have a get shadow root, then inside that actual element. Okay, step by step I went into that till this element. If you try to execute this, I need to get the next text, nested shadow element. So some mistake, unable to locate element, nested shadow element. Okay, the reason is I made a mistake. I did not put hash here. Here also I missed. I directly used ID. So because of that, it is throwing that exception. So now it should work. So no error. Now you see that nested shadow element. Okay, perfectly working. So sometimes one more layer. You see that multi-nested shadow element. So inside this element, inside this inner shadow DOM, you have nested shadow DOM. Inside the shadow DOM, you have a, let me inspect this. You see that span a multi-nested shadow DOM element. This is having multi-nested. I want to get the text. So for this, one shadow root, another shadow root, one more shadow. 3 shadow roots are there. Okay. So now we'll try one more time. So most of the logic is same. Till here, I can copy. Okay. So after that, let me put a separator here. So outer, so inner shadow root. So after that, again, one more web element. Okay. Multi-nested shadow host. Again, we have host, right? Inside this inner shadow root dot find element by dot CSS selector. What is that? What is that? Nested shadow root. Sorry, this is nested shadow DOM. And we need to put hash. Okay. And then inside this, what we have? Shadow root. Okay. So then it will give me search context. We need to use search context. Multi-nested shadow root. Is equals to multi-nested shadow host dot get shadow root. Once you go inside this, okay, now you have an actual web element. Web element inner shadow element, multi-nested element, I can say. Multi-nested shadow element is equals to multi-nested shadow root dot find element by dot CSS selector. What is that? Multi-nested shadow element. That is CSS selector. Okay. So now system.out.println multi-nested shadow element dot get text. That's it. So this is first layer, second layer, and third layer. Then I'm finding the element, I'm getting the text. So let me run this one. So if you go here, you see that multi-nested shadow element. That is what we have read, multi-nested shadow element. Okay. So might be a little confused, but this is how we need to handle these elements in Selenium. Okay. So you can use JavaScript executor, but we don't need to depend upon this, as getShadowRoot is introduced in Selenium 4. So first find that shadow host. Okay. Inside that shadow host, you have ShadowRoot. Because of that, here directly we are finding that element, driver.find element. So inside that you have a shadow DOM. So because of that, you get entire that shadow DOM using the ShadowRoot. So that will give me search context. Inside that you have normal DOM. Again, it is a normal DOM, right? So because of that, again find element. Once find element, if you have another shadow DOM, then I cannot directly use find element. So because of that, again ShadowRoot. Once you get into the ShadowRoot, you can use find element. Okay, same logic here. So one more point, no such ShadowRoot exception test. We discussed it, right? If that is there is no ShadowRoot, we'll get this exception. So for that, what I'll do, I want to print this. Okay, this is nowhere not inside the ShadowRoot or ShadowDOM. Okay, but if you assume this is inside the ShadowRoot, so that time same thing. Let me copy again. Okay, so then I'll take the same thing. I'm just replicating. So what I'll do, I'll take from here. Let me assume there is a shadow host. Driver.find element CSS selector. I have taken one. Okay, so inside this div we have h5 tag. Okay, this is actual one. This h5. So let's assume this div is just an example shadow. Okay, so because of that, let me treat that as a shadow host. Inside that, then again inside that we have a web element, header text, something like that, or element text, whatever you want. ShadowRoot dot find element by dot tag name. What is the tag name? That is h5. We have only one, so I'm directly taking that. So sys out. Header text dot get text. Otherwise, I can say header element. So header element dot get text. Actually, there is no ShadowRoot or ShadowDOM. Even though I'm trying to do, I'm assuming that the parent is Shadow DOM. So if I try to do this, you see that no such shadow root exception. That is what we are looking, right? No such shadow root exception. Okay. So the reason is this is not inside the ShadowDOM. If you try to do the other like this, or previously the element is inside ShadowDOM, but after some time you have written logic like this. You handle already like this, but in the next releases they remove the shadow root, means ShadowDOM, for some reasons. That time your test will fail with the exception saying no such shadow root exception. If that is not there, you can remove all these things. You can directly handle how you handle for normal elements. Okay, just an example. Example how when you get that kind of exception. Okay, so this is all about ShadowDOM, handling ShadowDOM, what is ShadowDOM, what is nested ShadowDOM, what is the purpose of ShadowDOM, how to handle those elements in Selenium using JavaScript executor and getShadowRoot method. Okay, so that's all in this video. Thank you for watching this video. Please like the video, share the video, and subscribe to the channel for interesting updates. Thank you.